Hi and welcome to Joe's Camera. In this episode I drive to a very favorite waterhole that's very close by to capture some action shots of probably the icon antelope species in the Kgalagadi, the Gemsbok, and specifically to get some fighting images of the Gemsbok, because those are one of the great action opportunities for a photographer in the Kgalagadi. So sit back, relax and enjoy this trip to the Kgalagadi with us. But before we go any further, make sure that you hit that subscribe button to get all the future uploads onto our Joe's Camera YouTube channel. About 2 weeks ago, there was so much water in the field and puddles of water lying over here and everywhere in the dunes that the waterholes were not used. So they were basically useless from a game viewing photographic point of view. But this is the areas that and this specific waterhole is where one gets very good Gemsbok fights, mock fights. As you can see over there, they sort of irritated when they get back to the water, and there's a pecking order of drinking, and they know exactly who the boykies is they must stay away with. But here's, for instance, an example of some footage I shot of Gemsbok fighting, and that is sitting for about 3 days waiting for the Gemsbok to fight and to envisage what I had to do. So I envisaged that there was some natural shots that I could get, but I also knew that there was some fine art images if I asked artists to do me a composite or to remove the background and to do some nice black and whites that would sell better than the normal one with a bit of distraction in the background. Like you see, they quite irritated, and there's another boykie come running in there. So he acts as if he's the boy around, but they'll soon sort out the pecking order. Let's turn around and see. I'm going to go and wait for Oti in the Botswana side, but let's turn around and just get the right vantage point and show you a little bit of what these guys do around the waterhole. It's a bit late, I think they drank already. So first what I have to do, this is the first day back, so I need to put this on continuous high, because if there's a fight over here, then you don't want to miss that one frame. So that's why the guys go for big frames, and you got things like, it's still on manual focus, it's too close, so 200 millimeters would be good for a full frame fight of two big ones. But of course it doesn't give me any idea. Even the 3 ones over there, it's still on manual. So let's get the mode right. Stick it on aperture mode. It's on f11 like I shot it last. It's not gonna work, so I want it on 6.3 and start getting my equipment. That's what happens the first day back. You can sort it out at the camp, but I didn't want to go out this morning and make these mistakes. So I take my time because I enjoy it and so on, and I can relatively. I look at another camera now, but this boykie is fine. Let's look at the ISO. The ISO on 400, so 400 is good, but let's stick it back to 200, and on 200 I get 1000 shutter with a 6.3, which is good enough depth of field, except if there's a couple fighting. So what I'll do is I'll look at the behavior of the Gemsbok over here. You can see when they're irritated. You'll see when they start there at the back. There's a few running. That's just normal behavior. It was on a 2-stop exposure compensation. So it was not on exposure compensation on the camera, but I switched it over to video. It's got its own settings, so I had to calibrate that as well. So another mistake you can make, and also very difficult how to if you want to shoot stills and you want to shoot on video medium, like the program that I'm doing now. I need to select and get enough footage to talk about the animal, but still wait for that action still shot, otherwise it's useless. So to pick the Gemsbok fight images that Haddas wants to edit and do a composite for us, let me show you and tell you a short story about a Gemsbok with no horns that did extremely well against other Gemsbok with full, long and thick horns. So yeah, this was full on action. We'll give you the speed of the shutter and the aperture settings over here, but this is a full on fight. You get a lot of mocking fights or mock fights at the waterhole because they don't really fight. This is about 6 or 7 frames a second, and it still leaves you with all of these gaps. But here you can see, I'm just going to go back to here. What happens with this guy over here is you can see that he goes in as soon as he knows that that point of the horns are not actually pointing towards him. So he's got a very clever tactic of going in and then going back, and when the horns are up, he goes in and he bumps him with his head. So here you can see, you look at the sand over here, this guy is pushing, so he wants to penetrate him with the horns, and this guy here is moving backwards. You can look at what he does over here. He's moved his foot back so that he gets out of the reach of the horns over here, and as soon as that guy picks up his horns, because he didn't make contact, what he will do is he will then move forward with speed of light, and he would bump him with his head at the bottom over here. You can see this guy here has received quite a nice blow. You can also see that this is quite a healthy, strong Gemsbok, and it's not that his horns have been broken off. He's been fighting for about 2-3 years like this. Here's another one example where you can see go one back, he's hit him, and he's really got some ground. He's pushed his neck towards the right over here, full on, and there he goes in again. And he does that because he wants to stay away from the front or the pointed part of his horn, so he stays inside. He's like a counterpuncher, a boxer counterpuncher that does the infighting. Here you can see he hits him again. He still keeps the horn away from his body, and then he starts moving out. He moves away from the point of the horns. You can see backwards. There, once again, he's just ducked. He moved to the side. If you can see there, he's moved to the side very quickly. You can look at the sand, the way he's moving. And he stays out of reach of the point of the horns. And then we get to the one image that shows that he's actually got no horns. And full action, full body shot. This one, the tail is a bit clipped over here, but relatively clean foreground. And this is the fine art image Haddas has done for me. Also a bit of a panorama, cut it off at the top. That's the image we've used, and that's the image exactly that I've envisaged. And he's done a nice black and white, so whether you've got a preference to black and white or color, these are the images, and that's the top one that I want, and it brings the feeling exactly how I felt when I took the image. The Gemsbok is probably the most adapted antelope in the Kgalagadi besides, I think, the Steenbok, because the Gemsbok is more visible, and there's something to the stripes that makes it look like a sport car, like Miss Garcia is saying. The stripes on the face, the proud statue that it's got stands out in the desert. The fact that it can raise its body temperature from between 35 to 45 degrees Celsius, which will kill off most other animals and specifically human beings, is but one of the reasons it really is suited to the Kgalagadi. Some of the other quick facts is that morphologically they are adapted because they graze short grass. They can also eat leaves and twigs and so on. They don't need water because they get their water from the plants and the bulbs and the roots that they eat. And they do that by eating late in the evening and early mornings when the moisture content of the plants are actually like 30% more than during the heat of the day. The other fact about the male and the female, or the Gemsbok male and female, is that you can't really see the difference besides the fact that the males have got a bit shorter and thicker horns and the females got longer, thinner and sharper horns. They also don't, like any other antelope, get their young and the young immediately join the herd. What happens is the female Gemsbok would take her calf out into the veld alone, away from the herd, from anything between 3 to 6 weeks, and they would rejoin when the calf starts getting patterns on the face and so on. The other difference between the Gemsbok and other antelope is that the Gemsbok bull, they live in mixed herds and they don't like for instance, the springbok during the mating season collect a lot of females, herd them together, mate with them and produce. They join the herd and there's very little conflict besides the fact that sometimes when it's mating season and around waterholes. So around waterholes is probably the most visible for us or the most easy for us to photograph conflict between Gemsbok because they don't necessarily separate from the herd and tolerate each other because of survival. Well, that's it from Kgalagadi Photography and Joe's camera. I hope you enjoyed the trip as much as we did. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you press that subscribe button and the like button so that you get all the future uploads on Joe's camera.